The U.S. Air Force may be planning to build a close air support aircraft to replace the A-10 Warthog after all. According to Flightglobal, a draft requirement for such an aircraft, known as AX, exists and will be reviewed by Air Force Chief of Staff Mark Welsh later this spring. The A-10 Warthog was originally developed to destroy tanks and armored vehicles in the event of an invasion of Western Europe by the Warsaw Pact. Its enormous weapons payload, heavy armor, and ability to loiter above battlefields providing support for ground troops has earned it fans in the U.S. Army and Marines from Iraq to Afghanistan. Battlefields have grown increasingly lethal to aircraft since the A-10 was developed. While the A-10 is perfectly good for strafing the Taliban, there's some question as to how well it would fare against modern Russian or Chinese air defenses. The Warthog's legendary protection, including self-sealing fuel tanks, redundant controls, and a titanium bathtub for the pilot, may not be enough to keep it flying over the battlefield of a war between two major global powers. The Air Force has long maintained that the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter will replace the A-10 in such an environment. The F-35's stealth, sensors, and networking capability would minimize the risk to the aircraft while still allowing it to pound away at enemy tanks. Though having been said, critics contend the F-35 is just not a suitable replacement for the A-10. The F-35 is a more complex, less durable aircraft. The F-35 can only carry a small number of precision-guided bombs in its internal bomb bay without compromising the aircraft's stealth capabilities. The A-10 can also straf ground targets with its GAU-8 Avenger, a 30mm tank-killing Gatling gun that can spit 1,350 armor-piercing rounds per mission. By comparison, the F-35 carries the smaller 25mm GAU-12 Equalizer gun, with only 182 rounds of ammunition. The Air Force has doggedly tried to stick with the F-35 as a replacement, but flying costs may have finally changed its mind. The Air Force is flying into a period where it has to buy a lot of planes at once, and budgets will be extremely tight. The F-35 costs $32,000 an hour to fly, while the A-10 Thunderbolt costs just $11,000 an hour. Over 20 years, that's a difference of approximately $52 million, so why not just develop a separate plane? What could AX look like? That's a very good question. While the Air Force is currently looking at a lighter close air support aircraft for handling insurgencies and foes like ISIS, the AX sounds like a real Warthog replacement, designed to kill heavily armored enemies over a highly lethal, 21st century battlefield. Technological advances in the last 40 years since the Warthog was born could radically change how the AX fights on the battlefield. The AX would likely not go all in on stealth, in order to store large amounts of weapons and fuel on the wings and fuselage. This would give it the ability to counter large enemy armor formations and loiter for prolonged periods over the battlefield. Instead of attacking enemy ground forces head-on, strafing enemy tanks and armored vehicles, AX might limit its exposure to enemy fire by controlling micro-drones that orbit the battlefield, then servicing targets with precision-guided rockets and missiles. The AX might trade a smaller gun, or no gun at all, for other capabilities.
Update to 1-8 Alpha.
counting it.